Hi everyone. We are gathered today here um, at the Nordic Filmmakers meeting point, and today's topic is breaking in without burning out. So I will introduce our panelists. I'll start with Camilla Stroem Henriksen, a director from Norway. Then we have Selma Vilhunen, director from Finland. Then we have Lilja Snorradóttir, producer from Iceland, and Annika Hellström, from a producer from Sweden. So I'd like to start out the conversation by asking all of you to talk about your paths, how that led you here, and what were the obstacles you encountered along the way?
Okay, so I made a film called Phoenix that screened here yesterday and also screened in Reykjavik International Film Festival in October, and it opened in Toronto and in September. That's my first feature, and it took me 12 years to make it. From I first started to write the script and then until it was made. So it was a long journey. And I think the main obstacle, I guess, was, or the main reason for why it took so long time was that it's not really a clear genre film. It's a family drama, which also has some other elements of a little bit of magical realism. It's a film with where the main character is 14, but it's a film for grown-ups, and it's very dark film. And it was my first feature, and I hadn't done any award-winning shorts, so people couldn't really see my signature as a director, and then feel that what they were paying for, what would be what they got. So I think that was the main obstacle. And apart from that, I don't know. I think also maybe Norway, because it was made, it's a Norwegian film. We don't really have that much of a tradition for. It's a melodrama in a way, my film, and we don't have that tradition for melodramas in Norway. So I think that might also be another obstacle. But yeah.
Hello, so I'm Selma Vilhunen, and my path to becoming a filmmaker is that. Yeah. So I kind of always wanted to make films. I knew that since I was something like 18 years old or something, and then from then on I pursued that dream and got into a film school eventually when I was 21, I believe. I was never accepted in the sort of main film school in Helsinki, the university film school. I almost made it, but didn't quite make it, and the reason always was that what they said to me that, well, first of all, my ideas were too weird for them, or they were lacking some kind of dramatic points or something. I was being too poetic and too sort of harmonious when they wanted just straight drama and like clear things and clear ideas. And the other reason was that they said to me that I simply seem too shy or too kind of undirector-like. They saw that I was nervous in the exams, and they thought it was a bad thing. And I just had to work around my way in a way to not believe what they said. But I made it into this other film school in another town, which was a good place for me, really. And by that time, I already had some connections in the Finnish film industry also, because I had been working for 6 months in a film production company doing all kinds of stuff, and I had already started writing my first screenplay, and I had people read it and they liked it, and so I was kind of like really really fighting hard from the beginning, and also really anxious to get my hands on anything. So when I got to film school at the age of 21, I just started to make a lot of films immediately. So I've made like 18 films now, which I can say that are kind of real films. They're short films, obviously, most of them, but they are they're films. they, and I've made both documentary and fiction films all along. I don't really see so much of a difference between the two approaches. Really, to me, it's kind of like the same thing, just a different method. Yeah, so my first feature fiction film was released 3 years ago. It's called Little Wing, and yeah, it took a long time to get that made eventually, and that was yeah. What can I say? All kinds of reasons for that. But to answer your question, like what was the biggest obstacle in a way in my path, and it was the thing I mentioned, the fact that in different places I was kind of, when I was younger, I was kind of considered not the typical director type. Like I wasn't like this, I don't know, like I was kind of considerate and kind and shy sometimes and stuff like that. So here and there, also in in the school where I got into, some teachers were sort of like thinking that I would never be someone who makes fiction films because you would have to be a certain type for that. And I just had to not believe them, basically. But I found the right people around me. So here I am. I make fiction films too.
There's another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to say hello. Turn that one on. Up there on the side. Oh, here I have. Hello? Oh wow, yes, it works. Okay, so I'm Lilja and I'm a producer here from Iceland. I'm also a part owner of a production company called Pegasus. And you could say that I was basically born and raised in the industry. My father was a DP and a producer, and my mother was a graphic designer. So I kind of have always been involved in the industry. They used to stick me in front of the camera when I was really young, and when I didn't want to do that anymore, around 13, I could make the sandwiches instead. So that's where I started. And I think I have probably done every single production or filled every single production position there is, from sweeping floors and making the sandwiches to being a PA runner coordinator and so on. And I think the biggest obstacle when I was younger was that when I started to produce, and that was, by the way, because the company does their own development and their own TV and films. It also does a lot of service jobs and commercials. So that's where I started producing, in the service and the commercial world. And then my biggest obstacle was how young I was. I mean, I was a female, which you factored a bit, but I was also very young. I was 19, 20. So it was a problem just being taken seriously when you were dealing maybe with someone who was 20 years your senior, and then they just met this little girl like, hey, I'm your producer. So that was a bit of an obstacle for me. And then I think my next obstacle was when, after I came back from my first maternity leave, that was 16 years ago, then I wanted to go into more creative, to be, come into the creative part of it and develop scripts and be on that side. And then I found it was a bit of a problem being taken serious in that, although it's the same business, it's completely different. So being taken serious in that part, because the other one is super commercial. So that was my next, I would say, those were the two biggest obstacles for me in the business.
Hi, I'm Annika. Well, I've been in the industry for 30 years, something I think, and I started out as a script supervisor and assistant director, and while working as a script supervisor, in the 90s, when I worked with a few female directors that were around, I've always, from my start with the film, I've always been very, very visually interested. For me, film it shouldn't stand ahead of actors and story, but it should be intertwined together with it. So I always had a huge concern about the visuals, and when I was working next to female directors, I strongly felt that they, with male DOPs, that they didn't really understood or took their listened to their way of how they wanted to portray the scene, or how a lot of times it was like as if they knew better. And I had a child. She was like 5 years old at this time, and I was seeing what she was, the children films that she was watching. And I thought that, well, you know, it didn't reflect the society at all. You know, women were out working, and women were taking positions and writing. They were journalists. They were doing everything in society, but the stories were like very traditional stories. And I thought, you know, God, nothing is ever going to change. As image is a much stronger way of communication than the word, I think, sometimes. And yeah. So this is how I'm telling you about how I became a producer. And so we were some female film workers in Gothenburg that shaped a group called Doris. You can read about it on dorisfilm.se. And with an intention of changing the male dominance behind and ahead of camera. And I'm not going to go into all that story because it's very long. You can read about it. But at the time, we got to that we wanted to make 9 short films over a period of 3 years, where all the scripts should be written by a woman, and they should all have a female leading character. All the artistic leading roles should be by women, and all original music should be composed by women. And we wanted to have this because there's been like a theoretical discussion for years. You know, they talk about quality and the story, how it has to be built up, and that the woman couldn't handle such a big thing as a production, and that she couldn't, as a lot what you're talking about is women has a different approach, you know, of solving problem or acting in power, which I mean, it's much more interesting than a male way of conquering power. Anyway, so when we were going to do these films, this was 2003, the Doris Manifest was launched. And when we wanted to do this, we didn't want to do the film in the group. We wanted it to be a national, how do you say, national thing, that everyone should be involved. And so we wrote a letter to the 48 female producers if they were interested in producing any of this film. And we got an answer from one. And this is how it was, 2003. I mean, it was really, you know, also in Sweden. I know when we formed the group, Doris, I was really thinking maybe, you know, I would be considered as a troublemaker within the film industry by fighting for this, you know. And then I said, well, you know, I don't care. If then they are not worth me. Was my opinion. So, but it wasn't. This was just in my head. So that's what I think is important to remember also. A lot of things is in the head. So anyway, so when we were going to do these films, we didn't find producers, and that's how because it's like I've been working and I had a lot of, I'm very interested in supporting as a script supervisor, you want to support the director all the way. And I had a lot of ideas about how to prepare or help or whatever the director on an earlier state than to give all the problems or budget cuts in the very end. So I just had to really throw myself, jump out of the cliff and say, well, I will produce this once. And this is how it, this was 2005. And then it hasn't been easy, but I think it's to me it's like a philosophical decision. I think it's because I find a lot of ways, and I know film commissioners says the same. I mean the way men do their applications and how they say how they are the best one and there is no one. Whoever's going to make this as good and they are fantastic. Women have a tendency of not saying that. I don't put a value on, it's not my thing. I do think that's humbleness. It's a great human aspect, but we are in a very competitive business. So I think everybody... Well, obstacles. It's like I feel like I'm going away. The obstacle is exactly to remain the person you are and to not go. But you also have to in a way conquer the language in order to. Get to your to reach, because they have a language that, the business, the financiers, everybody, and this is the same in any business, they have their rules and they have their language, and there's nothing will be better if you say, well, they don't listen to me. No, they don't. One of the lessons to do is, for me, for example, then to learn halfway or to get inside. I know one thing that Swedish film, we have Anna Saner, who's been doing a lot of brilliant work. But one thing that we did, which I really think is an excellent idea, it's the film commissioners has been gender educated in like a short way, and it's not about pushing an opinion or something. Women needs to be gender educated as well. It doesn't follow the sex, but I think one way to present it is to say that it gives a reflection. It's really, to me, I consider it that it widens your brain the double, because it's a lot. It's really inspiring, and the film commissioners that has been going through this, they just find it's like they have another way of listening to a female presentation. I don't think I should go on any longer.
So basically, from all your stories, the problem, the hindrance was that by being a woman, you were not being taken seriously. So what would a solution be to this, apart from changing the mindset, which is completely difficult? But you just mentioned, everyone being educated in gender equality. Do you think this is one of the solutions? And what others do you have in this aspect of changing the mindset a little bit? Do you have something concrete propositions? And how is it in how is it in Norway? How is it in Finland and here in Iceland? Yeah, you can, whoever.
I just ended my last talk with saying I found the right people to work with me. So to me, that was kind of the solution always. Ever since I started to make films, I was always happy, lucky to find those people who I could share the language with and who I could really collaborate with. And sometimes it took a longer time with some project to find those people, but it always somehow managed to work out. And a turning point for me was in 2009 when a colleague of mine, Jenni Toivoniemi, she had a vision. she knew me and she was a screenwriter at the time, and then she knew another screenwriter, Kirsikka Saari, and she had a niece, young producer at the time, Elli Toivoniemi. So she knew us three, but we didn't know anyone else except for Jenni. Anyway, she had a vision that we four would make a great production company together. And so she kind of arranged this. And we all four had ideas that one day it might be interesting to be a part of a production company. But we weren't. When Jenni kind of came up with this schedule, like, let's do it now. We were like, oh, now? But yeah, then we started kind of dating together a little bit, the four of us, and suddenly we had the papers in, and we took a course in like a creative entrepreneur something, studying how to make tax things and stuff like that. And then we were producers. We had Tuffi Films Limited, which is now almost 9 years old, and I don't know, that really was a turning point for all of us, because luckily the four of us have gotten along really well, and we have just been able to spur one another, so we have been able to kind of make each other's dreams come true in a way, and just go for our goals together. It hasn't been always easy, but we have kind of tackled the problems. Now we have 5 partners. We started with 4, and now we have 5 people. And that is some kind of a safe haven for me, for example. I don't know if... It's hard to imagine what my filmmaking would be like today if it wasn't for this kind of family kind of thing. So this is a female-owned company. We didn't have a agenda about gender when we started. It was about sharing the similar taste in cinema and about ideas how to be international, for example, how to get out of the tiny country of Finland, and how to take every little so-called little film very seriously and really like push it out and stuff like that. So those ideas we kind of shared, and we just happened to be female. But then we have been quite female in our company, but now we have a man working in the office. I'm really happy about that. We have a line producer with a man. So that is just like an example of what to do. Just, I don't know, just like bring your bodies together, I guess, is my solution number one. Also, I would connect this thing with Women in Film International, and each countries. In Finland it's quite recent, Women in Film and Television. Finland is something like 4 years old maybe, but it makes all the difference to have those platforms for meeting and discussing, and so suddenly all of these issues kind of exist in the first place. They are worded like they exist, and then they can be addressed, and together we can make a change. So over the past few years, things have actually been changing in Finland, and like the Finnish film industry has taken it into its strategy that it is actually stated now that they aim for equality in their financing, etc. So yeah, finding your people, coming together.
I think I'll just pick up on a little bit what you said, Annika, about one of the things that you that maybe could be an issue, and I think is an issue that women sometimes come across as less confident than men. And I think this has to be, how can I say, tackled in a couple of ways, because one thing is that, as you said, the commissioners and people and the society, the culture, our culture, need to look at, or how can I say, embrace women's way of acting or being in power, or so it's not only the male way of showing confidence and acting out as authorities. You know, there are female ways too, and that is something we have to get more and more used to when we have, after time, you know, women in powerful position, whether it's politicians or directors or whatever. So that is something to get used to. And then, but the other thing is also that women, I think, need to become more confident as well. And I think that is something that we are, we have to do it in our way, but we also have to be more confident. And I just know that for myself, that, you know, the confidence, you get confidence by doing things and getting things done. And you sort of have to sort of maybe become aware of, okay, now I'm more confident, you know, before I wasn't, you know, how can I strengthen my confidence? Because actually it is quite important, because you are going to ask people to believe in you and put a hell of a lot of money into it. So of course you want to do that with somebody who is confident about what they do, because I mean, Jesus, it's so in a way we have to sort of to take that and do it and be confident, and you know, because, and I think that's one of the reasons why there are less women in the parts of filmmaking where the status rises, you know, so fiction, high profile fiction, commercial films, less women, because there's more money. So the short films, documentary, low budget, more women, because you ask for less money. I mean, I think that is in a way the bottom line. So yeah, I think actually that is something women really have to be aware and work on, you know, their confidence, really.
Yeah, and to add on to that, I agree with that. We need, of course, to be more confident and just seek after those power positions. And I think it goes way back. It doesn't, the problem, at least in my point of view, doesn't really lie at the, for example, if I just talk about Iceland here, it doesn't really lie at the film center. It lies way back. It lies, I think, for example, you were talking about the gender education. That is something that could just be brought into the school system, and go way back there, because we are brought up. I think it's, you know, a problem. I'm not going to say a problem in the upbringing, but it is something to do with the upbringing. We don't seek risk, and we don't seek power. And I mean, the film business is both. If you want to be a director or a scriptwriter or a producer, then it's a really risky job, and it's a power job. And I think women often think that we need to do something practical. And for example, I was looking over the number the other day of applications in the film center, and then I noticed that, and it's probably the same, I know, in a lot of other countries, that I think it was under 30% the applications from women that was, with a director who was a female or a producer or a script editor female. So we need to look, something, what happens before that stage? Why aren't we seeking those positions? And often I get the answer, oh, it's because you have the kids. But the men have the kids as well. So that shouldn't be the problem. I mean, I have 3 kids. And somewhere there's a father or a babysitter or something, so that shouldn't be the real issue. But yeah, that is basically what I want to say. That is the problem lies somewhere else, I think. But at least we are trying to fix it, in the film business itself. And I think it's not only a problem in the film business. Same goes in the banking system and other professions as well.
Well, and I think women has to help each other, and to maybe like do easy or small images. We have an expression in Sweden which I think is very funny, according to what I said before, how guys a lot of times portray themselves as they know much more. In Swedish is killljuga. We have to kill you, and that's like, well, just do it, a boy lie. That's and if you make that up for you, it's like, yeah, I do think, if I generalize, I do think women are a bit more responsible. So even if you boy lie a bit, you will still take a lot of responsibility to carry it all through. I'm not saying, men, of course, they have that intention as well, but as a beginning to start with. And then I also want to say that I think that the big change in Sweden was when we brought in the quota system. And that was, from the beginning, it was there was this word, so it was 40-60. It should be divided by the script writer, director, and producer. Should be presented 40 or 60% each sex, and it could be women 60% also. But from the beginning, it was the word bör in Swedish, which means should, and should is more like a recommendation. But then they changed the word to have to, more decision strong. And this was, of course, making, all of a sudden you could see, because then this was 2006, I think, and it was a lot more male producers at this time. And all of a sudden, they understood, well, if I will get any of the soft money from the Swedish Film Institute, I have to look for women. So all of a sudden they were looking for women because they wanted, their business to continue. And this is the system, I think, that you see happens everywhere where you bring in quotas. I mean, I think it's the best injection you actually can have, because a lot of times, no one wants the unequal system because they are mean. Or it should only be a very few percentage. They are just not aware about, or we are. I shouldn't say they. We are not aware about how we're repeating a structural system.
Yeah, I'm just agreeing to this because we live in a society or in a world which has been dominated by the male gender for thousands of years. So it's a very, very complicated, very elaborate situation where we are, and since it's the problem is so deep in the structures, the solution, if we want it to be anything quicker than super slow, the solution should also kind of hit the structure, and quotas do just that. So they kind of they tackle the structure itself, and that's why it's efficient, and the results in Sweden are super interesting and good, and the quality of the films are really good. Yeah, so it's hard for me to imagine that the world would suffer from a more female perspective being on screens. I think we have studied the male perspective quite well up until now. So, and it's not like people are talking about saying to males or whatever people want to be that they should not make films, but we just want to have more voices. And all of the other approaches seem so fucking slow. So they're like, I think we can like talk about all kinds of things forever and ever, and the change is kind of too slow.
Talking about other solutions or opportunities coming from high up, do you think that schemes like the new Danish screen scheme for low budget films would help women get fast track their career to their first feature? Do you think this, when you said that, you know, where less money is required, do you think that schemes like this coming from film centers will help female filmmakers get their first or their second films up and running?
Well, it would help any filmmaker. I mean, male and female. So, and I think it's very important not to gender specify those low budget schemes, because again, that is just cementing the thought that less money, less commercial films, less prestigious films maybe, is something that women can do, and then the big budget films still, you know. So I think it's very important to sort of have that, not put the gender label on those schemes for sure. But you know, these schemes are great for any filmmaker. I think, you know, it's easier to break in or to make a film if it's low budget, and it makes sense because, you know, a beginner maybe should have less money than one who has proven that it works. So I think that's okay. But I don't think that is. I mean, this discussion we have, you know, about how women could easier break into the film industry and stay there. I think it's an important discussion, but it's very important not to make women victims, you know. That is, and making them, oh, it's problematic for women, you know. We have to make it less problematic, because it's a thin line between putting a focus on something and you know, improving conditions and making women kind of a victim of a situation, if you see what I mean. So, yeah, so those low-budget schemes should be not for women, specifically.
And do you have something similar in Norway?
Yes, we do. We have, like in Sweden too, we have these schemes, yes, yeah. And we do, and I'm very much very approving of the quota system, you know. We have quotas too, but I think still, I'm ashamed to say that I'm not really know how it works in Norway, but I think we have that, we have less than, we have like 40%, and I think it's still that should, isn't it really? I don't think it has to. No. But it's more and more, there's a little, because like 10 years ago, there was much resistance to quota systems in Norway in the industry from men and women, because some female filmmakers said, "Oh, we don't want that money if it's only because we're women. We want to be taken serious. You know, it should be for the quality." And I think that is something that is, you can still hear those arguments that, oh my God, quotas will lessen the quality, which I think is really bullshit. You know, because as you said, you know, you really have to sort of hit the structure, and quotas is very effective. So I think, you know, quotas is one of the most effective way of getting filmmakers into the business, I think.
And Selma, is there anything like this in Finland, and how do you feel about this?
Well, I quite agree with what Camilla said, that that these low budget schemes are great for cinema in general, but they're not the answer to the gender problem. We have something of that sort. I'm sorry, I'm not the expert really, but there is I don't know if it's a scheme, like if it has a name, but I know that the commissioning editors, that they have sort of different approaches in their decision making, and one of the approaches is these lower budget films that are, for example, they are usually films that take place in the present day and things like that. So it kind of exists, maybe without a name. We unfortunately are coming behind Norway and especially Sweden in how this situation is addressed. Like I mentioned in the beginning, that they only now just in the beginning of this year, for the first time, they stated in the official strategy of the Film Institute just a sentence that gender equality is a thing that they aim for, but that is only one sentence actually, and there is no more elaborate strategy, let alone any numbers of percentages of. It's just like we would like to, and even to get that sentence in the strategy was a battle. So there was like well-meaning people were saying that there is no problem, that it's an equal country, and so the problem is kind of subtle and hidden very deep in the structure. So now we're just kind of digging it out to the daylight and giving it like words. So we're just there now, coming after.
And Lilja, you produced Brackland, the opening film here, with a Danish low-budget scheme. Can you talk about that?
What specifically would you like to hear?
Do you think, in terms of what we were talking about, in terms of, do you think it will help? Do you think this kind of thing is helpful in kickstarting, let's say, the path to the first feature for a female director? And do you think it's a solution, or only a short-term solution, or maybe on a longer term?
Well, it definitely absolutely helps, but it's not the solution to the problem, not at all. And I agree with Camilla that a low-budget scheme should not be aimed for women, because then we're just saying that women should make the low-budget thing, and then the men could get the full grant, and that would just be ridiculous. But those low-budget schemes are important as well, just for filmmakers who are doing their first features, or the new Danish screen is for a feature. I think it's also for TV, if I remember correctly. So for both, yes, absolutely. And we don't have that sort of a scheme here in Iceland, and we don't have a quota either. But yes, it would help a female or a male filmmaker to take their first steps into the film business. But I don't think it should be directed towards women specifically, not at all.
And in Sweden?
About a special scheme? Yeah, we have Moving Sweden, which is, but it's not gender specifically. But we have the 60-40 quota, which I think it's perfect. It should be there, and all the Swedish Film Institute, all the film commissioners, everyone is very aware. Gender equality is very high on the agenda. I would like to say, if they have a hesitant or resistance towards gender equality or quota, the Swedish director and producer Kristina Olofsson once said, which I think is very good, when they go into quality and it's the best film, that in the bottom line it's about women being able to fail as much as men. You know, it's not about who is best, because it takes practice over and over again, and you know, I think there's brilliant men and women, and the whole world is 50-50, and we should just listen to both of the stories, and as the same with diversity, we should hear them too. It should not only be white. So.
Sorry, just to add on the low budget scene, and it's nothing to do with gender. It's making a low budget film like Bragland. It's just so much fun, because you can absolutely make terrific films that just don't need to be high budget. And sometimes with a high budget, you just lose yourself in the production itself, and it just is a monster of its own. So doing a low budget with when everything actually goes into the film and in front of the camera is just brilliant. And then everyone comes in with the same mindset. It is low budget, we have to make it low budget. I don't need 5 assistants. I can just actually do it myself, and I go to the flea market, wherever. I mean, everyone has, it just sets the mindset for the whole production, which is brilliant. So there is just an extra plus to have for a producer, and it's great.
I think the Danish, The Charmer, was was one of these films too, which is just excellent.
It is. Talking about what you said, Annika, about failing, do you think that one of the reasons that women have more difficulties breaking into the business and staying there is because the expectations are so higher, and we are not allowed to fail. We have to be 10 times as brilliant or 10 times as more or better than any man in order to, make a film or be there or even survive in the film industry. Do you think this is one of the reasons why the situation is like this? And then how would you correct it?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, failing. It's interesting. I don't. This is totally my own and very amateurish, but I tend to myself, if I think about the problem, I think that if, like in a structure, if you are in an underdog position, and I think this goes for both. I mean, men can also be in an underdog position, but I think as being in that, I mean, and this is different situation, different structures. Society is one, at the workplace it can be another, but when you, I mean, we are kind of, I think, trained that if we are in an underdog, or if we see ourselves as underdogs, then it's harder when you fail. So you have, if you move from that, you look out for, well, where can I fail here, which might not, always be the best thing. I mean, to me, I have a lot of times I've been trying to, if I'm hesitant, or like as you said, we take huge risks. I mean, going into production, and sometimes if I'm like, oh my God, this is not going to work, or where will this end, or whatever, and then I think, well, how would you see this, approach this, if you were a guy, and all of a sudden I'm approaching it differently, and I think it's important to make up those images, or speak bubbles that you just remind yourself of. I don't know. Was that about fail?
Yeah. Yeah, I do recognize the pressure to always excel somehow, or I recognize it maybe not in myself but around me. I've seen many of my friends, my female colleagues, really struggling to get their films made, and if some film is not winning all the awards, then it's so much more difficult for them to get the next one done, etc., etc. And I'm a bit different in a way, or the fact that I have been making both documentary films and fiction films all along, and I write my own stuff, and I also direct things written by other people, and when I make documentary, I also film myself. This kind of all around type of doing has helped me kind of get over the gaps or the hard times in a way. So I've been always able to, when it's been difficult to get something financed, I've always been able to do my job in a way. Like I've always been able to make a film. So one time a project sort of collapsed, and it was horrible. But then I more or less grabbed a really shitty camera and went to Lapland and started filming this old man who is a rune singer, and so I was able to make films and not lose my identity in a way, and not get too worried in whether I fail or not. I just keep making films, and that is my own personal way of surviving or navigating this whole thing. But sometimes when I look at some other directors who just focus on directing fiction, for example, and who don't, for example, write or something, it can be really hard sometimes if you just simply don't get your film financed. I wonder what the question was. It was about failing. Yeah, I just want to bring up the the topic of or how to put it. I feel like the more we make films, like now over the past few years, there have been more films made by female filmmakers in Finland and elsewhere as well. So I feel like already that is making a huge change. So the more there are these stories where females are main characters and they're all kinds of stories, not just about them being female, but about them being human beings. So that already makes a difference, and I feel like it's like a two-way thing. I want to be optimistic. I think that it will be more and more easy for us. The more there are films, the easier it will be to talk about future films, because the audience and everyone kind of slowly gets used to the idea of the females or the female perspective being the perspective of a human being, and it's not so much like a circus trick that a woman is making a film, but it's actually just a film. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know what I'm saying.
I just want to add a little funny story around, because I think the audience is so much more ready than we think, and not us, but where the money are, they go by the old style. That when we started the Doris Manifesto, we were all working voluntarily, so it wasn't a very structured organization. And when we launched the first, so we had a script competition for each year for 3 years. And when this was 2004 or 2003, 2003. So when we launched the first script competition, we did that during the Göteborg Film Festival, and we put a deadline in March, which wasn't, I mean, it's after, in reflection, you can think it's like the whole idea could just have failed there. We had like 8 or 9 weeks and we weren't thinking, you know. We were just so, and we, you know, there was the internet, but there was no. So we had like a tiny ad like this in the 5 biggest newspapers in Sweden, from north to south, and during these weeks we got for the script competition 411 short films scripts. And this number you can put in comparison with the Swedish Film Institute. They got 185 over 12 months. So, and this is what gave us the strength. You know, we really felt that, no, I mean, people out there, they are ready. They wanted to hear the new stories. They wanted to see women in the leading role. They were ready for it all. So, and I still think it is this way. You know, so.
Just want to comment on what you asked about if women has to be better or if it's more difficult for women to fail because we have to sort of prove that we are better than men. I'm not sure. I mean, I was thinking, I'm not sure if it's true or not, but I think a lot of it is in our head that women think we have to be better. But I'm not necessarily convinced that that is the objective truth. But I think by thinking we have to be better, we often try too hard, you know, and then that's not so easy to be around people who's trying too hard or trying to prove themselves all the time, because sometimes women maybe can be, and I recognize myself in this, can be so conscious of being good, and that you're trying too hard and you get a little bit less flexible, less playful maybe than you wanted to be originally. And sometimes, so if you are more relaxed, you know, fake it till you make it kind of attitude that men have sometimes, you know, you become more, you know, fun to be around with maybe, you know. So that is something that can actually become women's Achilles heel, that they want to be good and think that they have to be good, because maybe that's not the truth. Maybe it's just in their head. So that is one thing. And the other thing, which kind of contradicts a little bit what I'm saying, maybe, but it doesn't really, because I think that there is still this notion or attitude a little bit towards women that if you are or if you show authority, you are bossy and unsympathetic. And I think there is less tolerance towards women who show authority, because I think women and men all of a sudden feel that, oh my God, she's a bitch or she's unsympathetic. And I think there is still, more tolerance for men's authority, you know, that they can take all shapes and forms. And I don't mean that directors should be, not nice. You know, I believe in kindness and being nice to people, if you are a man or a woman. But, you know, being a director is about taking control and showing authority, and sometimes that is against. You have to sort of. You can't always be kind and nice, you know, because sometimes you just have to make a decision that doesn't make everybody happy, and I think that can be sometimes more difficult for women. And I think if you do it, that is often, you know, people have more resistance to it. But I think that will change. You know, as the more, well, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about as producers, but, you know, that is something that is still needs to be worked on.
Lilja, do you have something to add?
To your original question, or just overall?
Original, I mean, the failing question, but also if you want to add to what Camilla has just said.
No, I was just thinking about in the beginning when you asked about, I can't even remember what the question was, But my answer, wow, if I only knew the answer to that one, I mean, I could probably solve world peace as well. I mean, it was something about women not failing, or why do we feel that we need, not to fail and blah, blah, blah. I have no idea. I'm sorry. If I even would know the answer to that one. But I think you're right, though. I think we often tend, and that brings me back to the, just the beginning and the upbringing. And I mean, there's not that many years ago that, I mean, women stayed at home and men did the work. So it's about the upbringing and education, and years go by, and we maybe are a bit stuck in some ridiculous place, and we just have to take the next step, and we have to teach our kids and our daughters and sons and so on, and just be active in turning this around, because it doesn't really happen if you don't step up and do something. And then, sorry, Camilla, and you were adding on to something.
No, I mean, if you just want to add, you don't have to.
No. I'm all good, thank you.
But in terms of this trying too hard and putting pressure on ourselves to succeed, because it's a highly competitive and you have this pressure to succeed all the time, it leads to a lot of women burning out and just leaving the business, which leads then to fewer women in powerful positions in the film industry, mainly, behind the camera. So do you think this is also one of the factors?
That women burn out in the film? Yes, of course. It all leads back to the same issues, and this is one of the issue that why women leave the industry. And I mean, oh my God, I fail all the time, or say stupid things all the time. I just don't care. We just have to, and I mean, I don't fail more than men. And I know any one of us, I mean, no one does. It's just a question of just taking the risk, because you have to do that. And that's the same goes in every single business. If you want to do something, you just have to take the steps and have to work on it, and you have to fail billion of times before you get it right. That goes for men and boys or girls, men and women.
Yeah, something just came to my mind when we went to that creative entrepreneur course together with the 3 other partners. They taught us something about selling, which I had not heard before. And they said that in any business, when you have a product and you sell your product, what people do is they take 100 meetings or 100 phone calls, and maybe one time they sell their product out of those 100 tryouts, and that's very educational. That's I'm just agreeing this whole. It's like part of this is. Us women kind of working with ourselves on just being more confident and not being afraid of failing, and not being afraid of being unliked sometimes, and then a big part is the patriarchy stopping to exist. No, but the people sort of around us taking us seriously and as people and so on. So it's like you need both approaches in a way. You can't do it all by yourself just by deciding like, oh, okay, I'm important and I can do this. If no one around you believes in you and takes you seriously, you don't go anywhere. But it's like you need both approaches. So you need to be really bold and not really care about those 99 times when you just fail, basically.
And what do you think the creation of what kind of opportunities do you think would help like bridge all those gaps that we have been talking about and all those opportunities that come from higher instances, because there has to be something that, you know, how can I say, lessens the struggle, and to create more, to create opportunities, you know, for there to be more women and less pressure, and more confidence. And there must be some solutions and opportunities to this problem, because there must be. Do you think? Do you have any in mind?
I think in a way we have already discussed these solutions here.
But in terms of creating opportunities, for instance, another problem is because of the way the film industry is structured today. It takes a long time for everyone to make a film, but then it takes much, especially for women, if they want to make their first feature, then they have to have a child, and then do their second feature. Then there's a big gap there, and then maybe they just, you know, exit the film industry because they want to focus on motherhood, and this pressure to choose, and this the how can I say, the fact that we need to choose one or the other is a problem, and maybe not everywhere in the world. Maybe here it's much more progressive, but. In my opinion, it shouldn't be a problem, but the film industry is not making it easier in those terms. Do you think this is a problem, and do you think there should be opportunities in this sense? Because some women are scared and they just say, okay, I have to choose one or the other, and then I'll drop out.
Well, in a way, I mean, in a way, you have to choose. I mean, in life in general, you can't. I don't think you should, as a person, be able to have it all. You know, you choose something, and then you lose out on something else. I mean, that is living. You know, so I think there is a. So just to say that, you know, and especially now a part of the country, where the big welfare, we are thinking that we should be, it's our right to have it all, and it isn't really. So I think that is my my perspective in a way on a general term. But on the other hand, obviously, there should be on a structural level in society, women and men should be able to work on the same basis. So childcare should come into into the structure, which there is a lot of places. Some places there is not, and in Scandinavia we are lucky because it's better. But I think film business, freelancing, artistic life, it is very uncertain. It should be uncertain, because if you bring certainty into it, I mean, you can't have a lifetime. You can't be employed as a filmmaker. You know, so you have to prove that you are worth of the chance and the money in a way, however you turn it. So I think that's part of it. And then, so if you want a secure life with more certainty, you can't really be a filmmaker. I think in a way that's how it is, and that goes for both men and women. Yeah.
Yeah, somehow it seems to me that in the Nordic countries, the issue of having a child and being a filmmaker is not really that much of a problem compared to some other places in the world where it really is a problem. Of course, just like Camilla said, that it doesn't really benefit your film career so much if having a baby, or well, they can sometimes somehow inspire one another. But I mean, it was difficult to make that documentary in northern Finland when in the nights I was breastfeeding and not sleeping. it would have been a different kind of film if I didn't have a baby at the time, but still, it's not. That's kind of part of life, I think. Yeah. And it's, but of course, I don't know. I've also been kind of lucky to have other people than myself to care for my child. Also, it's not just me, so I have my time to really indulge into filmmaking, and her father takes care of her, or the daycare or whatever. But of course, it would be great if there were some structures for those who need it, for babysitting on set or whatever. Anything that helps is helpful. So why not?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same that you said, and you were talking about. I mean, we of course have it better here in the Nordic countries than maybe the US, but we're only talking about our reality because we have different problems than they do as well. And of course, it would be nice to have some kind of structure in the film business, and it would be more. I mean, we would have some kind of, daycare structure or something like that, but then we just go back to the budget issues. Yeah. I don't foresee we can solve that, unfortunately. But that's the same it's not only in the film business, it's in a lot of businesses that we have high pressure and are very time consuming. Then, it's not only related to the film business, this family problem, so to speak. So, I don't know. I have 3 kids. It's not perfect. Sometimes I forget a birthday or forget to pick someone else up, or they have dirty clothes or whatever. But same goes, I'm guessing, everywhere.
Anything to add?
Well, I sometimes I think it's a lot of it's like a hierarchic discussion about the first feature and then making the second feature. I think a great attitude would be if the filmmaker would just set up to make a short film in between, and to make that, to just take it as a challenge and make it like really smart, to just the most important thing is to be in constant practice, and to not aim for features. I don't know how many percentage of all what the institute gets are getting done. 6% or something of all the applications that they get. So the time when you and your partner have a child, maybe it isn't the best time to aim for a feature. Because the children is also during a limited time of your life when it needs a lot of care. I also wanted to add another thing that the Swedish Film Institute not invented, or whatever, what they made, that all film production companies who are applying for money, you can always apply for money, but to be, how do you say, eligible to receive the money, you have to be at the Film Institute. You have to be participated in a gender equality education day, which also includes sexual harassment, and this is after Me Too, I was there. It's been 2 days of this seminar, so the production companies are called up, and it's divided. The day is divided in 2 parts. The first part of the day was from the union, talking about you know, the actual work. I mean, I know we all have them. You know, the how do you say work. Arbetsmiljö, how do you say well?
Working in union.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And I mean, film production, I thought that was very good because it's, you know, film production has a tendency of looking at the side or, you know, not following everything, sometimes because of budget and because of a rush or whatever. So that was just brilliant to just be reminded about, you know, what is actually there. And then the half day was about a gender expert who had like different work scenarios that we had to work with, and how for us in our case it was like how we should deal with if a sexual harassment situation showed up, and also for us as producers to know where to go to, you know, how it by law actually works. So, and it was a huge discussion in Sweden and in the newspaper that Anna Saner, now she's really going too far, you know, she's pushing, everyone should learn this, and it's a lot of time, it is about this, but, you know, actually it's just like, you know, who doesn't want to know more, you know, that's what gender is about, it's about to know more.
Yeah, it seems that whenever there is a change, a concrete change or a demand for a change, it's always pushing things too far. When you look back in the history and the suffragettes or first wave feminists or whatever, when they made some change that is normal to us today, they always went so much too far. So that is just something to bear with, I suppose.
And in terms of solutions, maybe in Denmark, the Danish Film Institute is going to do something called a self-report on balance of crews in productions. In terms of gender equality, it came from Meta Louise Foldager from Metafilm, because she realized that she wasn't doing. Her production crews were not balanced, and so she kind of initiated this report, and the test strategy entered on the 1st of January 2019 into action, and every production company will have to do it, to file this self-report starting in 2020. So do you think this is a good solution to bridge these gaps that we've been talking about, and is something similar being done in your countries?
Can you just elaborate? So the producer is reporting on the gender
balance,
division in each production.
Yeah, how many women and men are employed at what positions in their production company on each production that they're doing.
Okay, I think that sounds marvelous. I really embrace all data. Like, numbers are so great when you are, you know, out there trying to make a point, and then what you can really get a good basis of is data. So all these statistics are such a great help. It's a lot of work to collect statistics and to provide people with this kind of information that you can actually prove something with and show a structure. But this sounds like a great thing. In Finland since Me Too, people started to kind of react a bit, and for example in our company we stated like an agenda or our company policy, and it's like a public agenda, and we wanted to kind of I don't know, go a bit forward in these matters, but this kind of very concrete reporting sounds really good to me.
Yeah, what I was going to say is we have I mean, at least some part of it here in Iceland, when you do the application, when you're applying, then you have to fill out, and I can't remember if it's all positions or it's at least a part of, at least the creative, I think, position that you have to fill out if it's a man or a woman, and also when you hand in the report. And at least, Anna Maria, can you remember? It's at least for the last 2 years we have been doing that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing with the numbers, though.
I'm not sure either. I just now I hand them in.
Do you want to add something? Or
In Sweden we do this, and if you go into the Swedish Film Institute's website, because this is available in English also, they have a certain part that says statistics. So it is the Swedish Film Institute that takes care of all the statistics, and it is really great to have. It's fantastic, but it's a lot of work, but it's absolutely worth it.
does the audience have any question?
Should I just ask?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering if you find it important to have some, like when you were starting in your careers, to have some female role models, or did you think about it at all? You know what I mean?
I'm just going to, because I got a mentor, and he's a man, and when I decided, I was an actor before, so I became a director quite late. I mean, or I had already had an acting career before I started, and then I went to film school. So I started kind of with this, like a second career, and went to film school, and then then I met a director who I thought, I really wanted to learn from. What you say, I really felt that I wanted somebody, a role model as a director. Kind of consciously I wanted it, I wanted to be inspired by and to somebody I could ask for advice and have this image of a role model. But I didn't consciously decide that it should be a man, but for me it was important to have someone, and he's still my mentor, and I think that I think it strengthened my, having that, it strengthened me as a director, but it strengthened me in my femininity as well, because he's a very good director, and I like how his attitude, and I kind of imply that, and it's because I'm a woman, it strengthened my feminine approach in a way, even though he's a man. So I'm just saying that I don't think it's necessary that it should be a woman, but you have to be conscious about whether it's a woman or a man, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I have some role models, and one of them kind of happens to be a woman, Pirjo Honkasalo, who is a Finnish filmmaker, and who, she's just a great filmmaker and a great adventurer, I think. And she was our teacher in the film school for a whole term, or for a whole autumn, and that was a very important time in my life. And I think she has a really big impact on me, and she was really pushing me forward. So she was one of those people who kind of saw me when I was young in a good way and pushed me. But somehow I think she happens to be female. Somehow the gender is not a thing, and even this is a personal anecdote, but one time during that autumn, I talked to her. We were like in some kind of party or something, and I talked to her about my sorrow of not ever having a father in my life, or any kind of father figure. And she said to me that, Selma, but I am kind of like a father figure to you. So this goes kind of the opposite way.
No, I can't say that I ever had a role model, especially in the beginning. But then later, maybe in life, when I started traveling more and meeting more and more people, then I met more and more women that I looked up to. But I can't say that in the beginning I actually had a role model or someone that I was aiming towards. But it's more, it's not a single person. It's more general people that I meet and find amazing and look up to. So.
Yeah, I didn't have anyone either, but I mean, it would sure have been good, to have to decide about your career and approach someone. I mean, I didn't decide that I would produce. It just happened, so I kind of just jumped out of the cliff and made it. So. But I think it's a good thing to look for, and I agree with the other ones here that I don't think you should look for if it's a man or a woman.
Actually, I think that that could be something that could help female filmmakers and male, but especially we're talking about female, if they are, feel less confidence and stuff. So I think the Film Institute could have these, and that's quite low. It doesn't cost so much, to have these schemes with mentorships, where you have, and I know they did this in the Norwegian Film Institute and probably other places too, where you have younger filmmakers, having a mentor with a more experienced filmmaker. I think that's very helpful. And ideally, you seek it yourself. I mean, I did it myself. You don't really need that scheme, but everything that helps is a good, and that is something that is easy to organize. It doesn't cost too much money, and I think it's very valuable because again, you are with an older person and somebody you choose it, or you ask somebody you really admire or like, and then you are you're able to have a conversation and share experiences. I think that's really important as a filmmaker or any artist really.
Yeah, that's a good point. Women in Film and Television Finland now has this kind of mentoring program. So for some time in the spring, I believe there was the time to apply for the program, and now it's happening. So there are some screenwriters, I believe, and maybe some directors who are mentoring certain young female filmmakers with their projects, and that I'm looking forward to the results of that.
Great. More questions?
I am wondering, how did you get on your first, job where you actually got paid like an adult, or do you know what I mean? Where you got paid just like a professional? Because today, I feel like there are so many low-budget projects where you don't get paid, and but I want to be a professional, I want to work in this industry. So I'm wondering how you did that, how you broke into the industry as a professional and got paid for it so you can live.
I can answer. I think it's you have to address that to the one who are asking, for your services. You have to say, I love to be on your production, but I have to pay my rent, so I need to be paid. But you also have to be confident, or with that is your decision. Otherwise, I mean, it's then it won't happen. I mean, then it's maybe you can work with something on the side, but you have to ask for yourself. You have to say, I have to be paid. Otherwise, you won't be coming in as a professional. But then everyone has started by not being paid. But you shouldn't go on with doing that for too long. So, and I, just as you, Lilja, I've been working in just every position.
Yeah, I will. Can I just comment on it? I think there are different, how can I say, layers to this, because you are, if you work in, if you work to make money, or if you want to obviously do it as a living, you have to be, it's good to go into areas where there is more of an industry, like television, perhaps. There is more of an industry than the feature film or the low budget filmmaking, because there is less money there, and I think that after I finished film school and I didn't want to act anymore, so I started to work in soap opera, and I directed soap operas for years. And it was a bread and butter for me when I was developing my own stuff. And I got an advice from a director who, quite early on when I returned from film school, and he said his advice was, don't start to count to get money on your passion projects. Don't count on that money. That is just bonus money, because if you do that, you will start to compromise. And that was a really good advice, because actually, because I spent 12 years making my feature. I mean, not every day, obviously, because it was on the shelf for some time. But that was a very good advice, because I've spent so much money making that film because it took me so long. But that's okay, that's it shouldn't be differently in a way. But obviously I had to make a living, so I earned that doing something that was quite nice. I directed these soap opera, and that was quite nice too. I mean, boring after a while, but still I was still directing. So I think one has it depends a little bit your ambition. But if you want to write your own stories and direct, you have to make sure that you have to be prepared, I think, to finance a lot of that yourself, and not start to be dependent on schemes, and because that will probably not be enough for you to see that project through. So but on the other hand, you also have to be realistic and become a professional, and then do that in industry where you are able to work and earn. I think that's.
I think we have to wrap this up. Okay. Last question.
I think we should take this more questions, because we're gonna have a party at Lemmer Square at 6:30. So I think it would be great if everyone would join us there. There's gonna be drinks sponsored by Lady Brewery. So keep your questions and ask them in person. We'll have a chat, we'll network and have fun. Sounds good? Thank you so much for coming. Thank you all. It was wonderful.